I joined Google 23 years ago, and this is a picture of the first Halloween party with Larry and Sergey. I was lucky enough to work with Larry and Sergey on the first Google robot, a mall called Mayfield Mall in Mountain View that was taken over by Google, and Google X was in there. At one time, they had over 24 robotics projects there. So I'm dressed up as Minions. And so why is this relevant? So a little bit of a history about the Minions. When the character creator of Minions was drawing the character, Eric Leon actually made it a robot first. A robot in a factory. And if you can see on the left, it was very mechanical. It had eyes, it had arms, it had legs. And then he evolved it into a creature with a kind of a robotic body to basically like an embodied form. But why did he go back to this? Because these forms were not relatable to humans. People, humans like us, would not be able to trust a robot-looking mechanical machine. I'm going to do a little poll. For those who grew up in the West in the 70s to 2000s, what was the one robot cartoon you saw after school? Just name, call it out. Transformers. Transformers. Okay. So Transformers was about robots battling each other, right? They were fighting. They were fighting not just on Earth, but other planets, fighting for resources. It's actually a very violent theme if you think about it, okay? For those who grew up in the East, Japan, China, Taiwan, Korea, name a cartoon that featured robots.
Robotech.
Robotech? Anyone else? Gundam. What else?
UBA.
All right. So,
Simulators.
yes. So many of those called out, those were battle bots, if you think about it, similar to Transformers. Going to battle, right? So you got Gundam in the middle, but then you have Astro Boy. Very much a humanoid robot that looked like a human. People don't know this, but Doraemon is also a robot. It's a robot cat, right? And so what's really interesting about the East versus West when it comes to cartoons for kids is that the West was had more violence in some of their cartoons and forms, while the East had a balance. So Doraemon was not a bot, a cat bot that was fighting. There's no like guns coming out, right? There's basically a support robot that supported the kids with their imaginations, okay? Now, let's talk about feature films. Top feature films, 70s to 2000s, that had robots in there. Just call it out.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Jeremiah says Star Wars. Anybody else? Terminator. Anybody else?
There is a movie
Ghost
called
in the
Robots. There is a movie called Robots.
iRobots, yes. So guess what? You guys, survey says Star Wars, Terminator, and iRobot. These are what we know, right? And these were the 70s to 2000 robots. What is a common theme here?
Taking risks.
It's a lot of violence, war, right? Battle of the clones, the droids. They were battling each other, violence. Terminator, the robots are taking over the world from the future coming back to the past, right? iRobot, these are basically agentic systems that took over a whole city, society. This is like in danger. So in reality, from kids to adults, we've been conditioned to fear robots. Now I want to ask a survey here. How many of you would actually not just purchase a robot or invest in a robot because you're here interested in robots, but would you allow a robot to go into your homes today to do stuff for you? Raise your hand if you would. Very low number, maybe. Jeremiah says maybe, okay. Most of you, again, probably want to see what these robots can do. Do you trust it? Can it actually work around your family members? Would it break your stuff, right? Okay, so this is really interesting. Top feature films about robots from 2000s to now.
Wally.
Wall-E, one.
She.
Ex Machina, that's it.
She,
AI.
AI. Okay, anybody else? All right. Okay, so we don't have a good match here, but most of the films that people are influenced by, Wall-E, right? Baymax, Wild Robot. What are the most common traits about these robots? Kids friendly. They look like they're huggable, right? They're not violent. They are support related. They want to support you. They want to support the kids. They want to support the society. They want to support nature. So the theme of the robots have been changing recently, and this is what kids are now being conditioned to. And so I believe, my thesis is that next generation, there's more of an acceptance to robots, not just because of the technology and adoption, but also the culture that generations are getting from media. Robots today. So I had the opportunity to visit many robot factories making robots, making cars, doing supply chain, warehouses, logistics, all that sort. The robots you see here do not look like anything we saw in the cartoons and the movies. Most of these are locked up in a warehouse or in a cage, right? And mostly because it's the safety factor. Why is it caged up? If a person goes in there, it's going to get knocked out. That robot does not see the human, right? That robot knows how to do one thing and does one thing well many, many times. And these are the robots that have been around for the last 20, 30 years. Now, changes have been evolving and improving on these robots. So what we saw earlier was a robotic arm. These are also robotic arms, but they're more like cobots. And they're smaller than what you saw before. And mostly because these are designed to work next to humans, to help them with their tasks, to help them with their manufacturing things. And you can see the size can go from small to big, back to small. What's interesting was we saw a huge arm that can probably lift a couple 100 pounds of steel or car parts or what have you, to the arms of different sizes to help you with your daily tasks. Now, these arms can now be put in mobile vehicles or other mobile moving robots. So they're putting arms on robots now, okay? And so if you ever toured, let's say Amazon, they have all these autonomous vehicles. They're basically robots, 1 million of them, running around in their warehouse, right? Most of them are carrying large, heavy objects, sorting around the warehouse. And they're experimenting now with robots to do pick and place. Because right now, many of the people working in those warehouses are doing pick and place. Now the challenge with that is, a lot of those folks that are in the warehouses, they're in a very dark corner of not even a cube, but a very small spot. Very dark, very dingy. They have to work 10 hours a day, basically packing and sorting stuff. Most of those are called, dull jobs that people probably don't want to do for a long time. And they see a lot of churn rate with those workers. And so these robots that you probably see and hear about in the news, they want to further the automation, not just the logistics and carrying heavy objects, but also doing the pick and place. Because it's hard to actually keep the workers who are doing those type of things. Have you ever heard of the term going postal? This is like a term from the 90s, right? If you ever toured some of these places where people are just doing these manual tasks over and over again, there's stickers, mental health stickers, well-being stickers, all around the workplace because people basically don't like those jobs. And so the type of robots that they want to deploy will help solve those issues. And the people who are actually working those jobs can actually train robots over time and manage robots. So robots of tomorrow. So what we saw was arms, wheeled robots. The extension now, the arm is now growing a hand, okay? Now, the hand itself is a very complicated robot in the form of itself. The hand is mostly actuators, but also micro devices inside. And what's interesting about the hand is the hand can now reproduce a person's hand, the dexterity, the feeling, the sense, and doing some of the things that human workers are doing. So this is a big step ahead, and we're starting to see more hand robots coming onto the market. These hand robots can easily be added on to many humanoid robots, but also robotic arms of what we saw before. So you can imagine the robot arms that used to just lift and place heavy objects can now use these hands to do specific, precise things. There was a GTC conference this year where Jensen Huang from NVIDIA was standing next to all the humanoids, or at least the ones that are creating a buzz in the market and having some traction on stage with them. So they all look like humans from afar, right? But when you go up close, only Jensen looks like a human. Everybody else looks like what? Terminator. So who's going to allow many of these Terminator-looking objects or robots in the house? Probably not many of you. All right, so really quick. So trust is basically you have to create a form factor that humans, not just in your house, but in your workplace, would accept these robots so that you can co-work with them, that you can collaborate with them, right? You can actually manage them well. Controls and sensors are interesting. So there are many camps now in robotics. There's a traditional camp of programming robots with controls, with kinematics, with different trajectories. And then there's the new physical AI element of using sensors to help basically translate videos to those movements without you having to program it. And so we can cut down a lot of time from programming because of that. Next thing, you probably heard a lot about the challenges of data collection. There's not a lot of data out there to actually train robots. So whether that you're operating in a warehouse, in a factory, or in your home, you have to collect enough data to actually train those robots that work in the factory, the warehouse, and in your home. And everybody's homes is a bit different. So if you want to have a robot in your home, it needs to learn what needs to be done in your home environment before it can scale out. And then so Waymo took 14 years to train so that you can ride Waymo around Bay Area. But with a lot of new technologies today in physical AI, you can actually shorten that amount of time instead of years to be days or weeks, which is really great. Different other ways to collect data is teleoperations, exoskeletons, and gloves. What we're building at Cosmicbrain is taking video. Just any video that you take of me right now can actually translate into robot form. And then lastly, synthetic data and simulation. So real data is not always enough to train robots.